So good morning, everybody. My name is Alvise Bonivento. I'm a venture capitalist, so it's a different figure from what we've seen today. And what I wanted to touch really quickly, also because it's the last presentation of the session, is what kind of process of thought we are going through these days in when evaluating new technologies to invest in this type of domain. And it's a kind of a personal overview. Okay, so Atlante Ventures it's a family of venture capital funds, part of Intesa Sanpaolo, and it's part of a large effort of the bank to invest in innovation. We have 3 funds. We invest from seed capital to early stage, even to a later stage now. We've invested in any kind of domain, medtech mostly, a lot of embedded electronics as well. But my personal background comes from technical background. I'm not really a financial background. In fact, I started working in what was IoT before being IoT. We used to call it wireless sensor networks many, many years ago. It was probably 10, 14 years ago. And we started playing with Smart Dust project, Mica project. And it's interesting because many of these things somehow go back to some of the products that are still existing now and the ones that were presented even before. Then I went into the industrial domain space for a long time. And now, as a venture capitalist, I am very much involved in the automotive space, especially in one company called Yogitech, which I believe is collaborating with several of the companies we've seen before, trying to provide functional safety products and services, especially in the automotive sector. Now, really what I wanted to share with you is what type of, as I said before, what type of consideration we are actually having now when considering these new technologies. Yes, okay, so IoT now is the big hype. Everybody talks about IoT, forecasted trillions of dollars, huge markets, big M&A transactions. And also you start seeing little things from bottom up as well. I start seeing connecting coffee machines and all these type of things, which are very interesting because it looks like it's really slowly catching up. But the fact is that most of the technology that we're seeing today, it is not very different from what was there 10 years ago. So why didn't it happen before? Because looking at trends, IoT should have happened 10 years ago. 5 years ago also should have been already big. But every time it's been shifted. And it's never started. Only now it's starting. Lack of common interfaces and service platforms. This is probably, that was one of the major barriers. It was very difficult to offer reasonable data rates at very low power. And this was somehow making a limit to what IoT could have been applied for. And as a consequence, it could have been only applied to those applications which it could be very difficult to justify a complete business case. Also because IoT generally, obviously involves many parties to have an IoT application work. And not all the times you can find a win-win scenario for all these parties. One clear example was the supply chain management. 10 years ago, we all thought it should have been extensively used by RFIDs and these type of things, but it didn't really happen at that time. Now, have these barriers been completely removed? So and so. Well, there is a lot of low-power Wi-Fi now, which is becoming a real beneficial thing for this world. And it's contributing to give that type of extra data rate to create more and more applications. Also, we started having some business cases that are more self-contained and self-sustainable, especially in the smart metering, in the preemptive maintenance scenarios. Service platforms, now they're starting to emerge, but still there is not much of a convergence. Also on standards time as well. Now, only when this my belief is that only when this last point will be completely developed, then you will see a huge amount of devices being connected in terms of IoT. Before that, the growth will still happen in a one device at a time matter. So there will be several service platforms. These are things that somehow have been touched by previous speakers as well. Several service platforms, several classes of applications. Now, one aspect that in my mind is really key now is the security and safety factor, which has been touched upon on the previous presentation. Because this will be, in my opinion, a key distinguishing factor to determine what type of business model you will have for a certain application. I don't think you will be able to have, for any type of application, the same type of business model where, collecting sensors from the field, they all this data go in the cloud, and somebody creates an application out of it. This can work for some application sector, but from others, you will have to address safety and security matters quite a bit. I mean, I am involved in the automotive electronic platform domain, and over there, in the new cars that we are seeing now, you have different type of application running on the same infrastructure at the same time. Some of these applications could be like something more than entertainment, and they can be, typical, everything is a service model. You go in the cloud, you create a service, and you provide a service to the user. Some other things are a little bit more tricky, like in a traffic management sense. Others are extremely delicate, like the ADAS, the Advanced Driving Assistance Systems. On those ones, you really have very tight functional safety and security constraints that they will need to supply. And this will make a clear difference from a technological perspective, because all these applications, somehow they will have to share the same infrastructure from a communication standpoint. But the service platforms will be different. And also, in my opinion, you will have different business model running on them. Now, this is for automotive, but you will see same things happening probably also for smart cities. One thing is, handling an application on park meters. Another thing is monitoring the critical infrastructure within the city. Industrial automation, of course, even stores. In a store, you will have some customer interaction systems with, object tracking, gaze tracking. But then you will also have, running probably on the same infrastructure, also the automated payment platforms. All these things will be running on the same platform, on the same infrastructure, but they will require very different handling. And this will be the big challenge, trying to understand how to address all these different issues in an economic way. And another quick thing I wanted to touch upon is the data markets, which I don't think it was discussed before this morning. Because my feeling is that, okay, so project this thing some years in the future, you will have a lot of data coming from a lot of sources. Now, obviously, there will have to be an organization of the supply and demand out of this data, because otherwise they will be useless. In fact, most likely, this will be the part where you will be able to monetize much more, rather than the device itself, when I'm looking at the future. So, some data will be used for real-time interactions, other just for metrics and measurements, which is kind of two different types of markets. Now, this scenario is somehow recalling what is happening now in the online advertisement space, if some of you is familiar with that. But there are several real-time exchange platforms, Turn, AppNexus, and these exchange platforms, they take all the inventories from the different web pages, and they sell it to whoever wants to put an advertisement on it, and usually there is a bidding process, and there is a huge amount of companies that work in this space to provide algorithms to understand better what is the user doing, analyzing the cookies, and all these type of things. It is very possible, and by the way, some of these platforms are independent, some others are managed by large corporates like Google, just to name one. It is very possible that maybe 5 or 10 years from now, we will start seeing a similar path also, an established similar path also for the IoT domain, where there will be exchange platforms where people will publish raw data coming from the field or from wearable devices. There's going to be some companies that do data analytics, and they will start to provide value-adding services out of those data, and there will be interested parties to acquire those data, and maybe there will be also bidding platforms on it. So this is one of the technological trends that I think it should be interesting to monitor for us. So just to close, what technologies are we looking for as a VC opportunity? So right now, still, I think in the near term, it's mostly about smart devices, somehow similar to what we have seen presented by Intel before. because they're easy to accomplish, and somehow also they're already ready for the market. Most of the times they can have a business case which is self-contained. User interface will be a major differentiator for these devices, because, okay, given functionality will be a given, but the user interface is what is probably going to make a major difference. Service platforms and communication infrastructure, it's still unclear to me at this stage if this is a space for startups or just a space for corporations. As a venture capitalist, obviously it makes a large difference for me. Potentially startups are, though, partnering up now with corporations to make solutions which should become the corporate solution. So in that sense, with corporate venture capital investing more and more in this type of companies, then they will move from startups to corporation themselves. Interesting for us, it's the smart plug-in technologies, solutions to improve existing or developing products. This is what I call them. For example, smart antennas, something that can always be very useful. You don't need to change much of the infrastructure, but you can have a smart antennas to improve your performance. That's something that for a venture capital investment looks very promising. As well as hardware and software solutions to handle safety and security, which I still believe it will be, I mean, at least functional safety is the key element now for automotive electronic platform of the future. I think that also the security part will be the key differentiator for applications in the IoT domain. And I believe over there will be a lot of opportunities for startups. Last but not least, the data mining and real-time exchange part. Maybe it is not yet a factor, but I believe in the long run, we may see, the ecosystem will develop. And with a lot of data, there must be somebody to handle that data and to manage the possibility of exchanging out of that data. It's very unclear how it will develop, but something similar to what happened in the ad tech domain is something we might see. So that is one trend that we're certainly looking at. And this will be all, and available for questions later on. Thank you.